thanks for having me, and hello to everyone. Yes, my name is Michael Brenner. So I am currently CEO of Marketing Insider Group. We're a content agency that also helps B2B brands with content strategy. My prior history, I spent 25 years in corporate marketing, a little bit of time in sales. My last position, I spent 7 years and left as the head of digital and content marketing at technology brand SAP, which I think maybe some of you have heard of, where I essentially built out an enterprise content strategy that drove $1 million in pipeline revenue for our sales organization. And really grateful to the organization for giving me that opportunity, because it allowed me to kind of go off on my own and help other brands to do the same.
That's amazing. And you were also very active at NewsCred, right? Because we knew this one too in front.
Yes. So NewsCred was a content calendar and workflow software tool that was acquired by Optimizely, so a digital experience company. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'll answer the second one first. I mean, I work with brands. I'm working with two right now, well-known enterprise technology companies that did not and are asking me to build out the business case to justify investments in content marketing and helpful educational buyer-led content. So yeah, it's always going to be needed. And I think the SAP story kind of illustrates why. So I joined SAP in the North American region as essentially a demand generation role. And what I found was that all the things that were working were essentially content driven. White papers, content syndication, downloadable guides, those kinds of things. And so based on the success of rolling out some of those programs, I was elevated into the global organization and marketing and asked to build out a larger content strategy. When I looked at our website, unfortunately, all that I saw was product content. And I remember the head of the website telling me, behind every link on our website is an executive vice president of sales or product that, demanded that link be there or that piece of content be there. But there was no one advocating or fighting for buyer related content. And so SAP ranked for SAP Cloud, but didn't rank for cloud computing. SAP ranked for SAP HANA, which is their big data solution, but didn't rank for any keywords related to big data, unbranded, search as we call it. So that's where I started. I really built out the business case based on a complete lack of unbranded organic search rankings. When we looked at IBM and we looked at Oracle and we look at these McKinsey, these other well-known technology brands, they were all creating educational thought leadership content around the trends in the industry around cloud computing and big data and the analytics and the digital transformation things that we're all paying attention to in today's economy. And so the business case was really quite simple. SAP needed to have a voice in those conversations, and that really started with a content strategy. No, it's really the main problem and challenge that I think especially in B2B SaaS, most technology companies face. 75%, almost 80% of our clients are in B2B SaaS. And so, yeah, they're founder driven in many cases, or product, engineer driven. And so, I always tell people you have to explain what your product does. And that's the first step, as you mentioned. The problem is that no one knows about you. And so the answer isn't to just spend money promoting product content, because no one wants that. The solution is to build the context for your product. And so, at SAP, one of the ways that I built the business case was we need to reach, engage, convert, and retain buyers that we would never reach if all we did was talk about our product. Because if all we do is talk about SAP, the only people that are going to find that content are SAP employees and customers and partners. But we need to find the new CIOs and the new directors of IT that are going to buy our software. And so how do we do that? Well, for every one person searching for your product, there's 10 people that are looking to figure out how to solve a problem. And for every one of those, there's another 10 times more people that are looking to understand what the name of the problem is. And so even using keyword research, you can see that 110 and 1 sort of index from a funnel perspective really applies in almost every product category. What questions are people asking? What is cloud computing? The CIO may need to purchase a cloud computing solution, but the CFO has no idea what that means. The CIO may want to solve a cloud computing problem, but the CFO has no idea what that means. So how do I solve whatever problems I'm having through a cloud software solution? You need content that helps explain that to the financial buyer. And then you can start to answer the questions about how your product actually solves the problem. But think about it. So for every one piece like that, you need 10 pieces that are in the middle and 100 pieces that are at the top of the funnel. That's really how we start in identifying what kind of content brand should create. Yeah, I mean, there's a line that I use, and it offends some people, but it's true. And the line is that personas are great except when they suck. And the reason that I use that is that personas can be helpful when they guide the topics that are important. So for example, the number one question I would ask is to a CIO, if that's a persona you're targeting, what are the biggest challenges that you face? If the CEO is the target audience, what are the biggest challenges CEOs face? And what you start to see is that you start to see some commonality in the topics. So, we call this interest-based or intent-based marketing. Mm-hmm. And what it means is that the personas are less important. The challenges, the concerns, the topics are more important because that's what attracts the persona. And the best example I always say is like, if I said, hey, CEOs, read this, no CEO will read it because they know I'm trying to target them. But if I target them with a piece of content that addresses their biggest pain point, their biggest challenge, they're going to opt in to want to read something like that. And so how do you do that on a limited budget? There's a couple of tricks I love to employ. So for example, most of our clients, we have 35 content clients, and we usually start with about 100 pieces of content in a year. So instead of, most brands—
For each of them? Sorry, for each of them?
For each client, 50 to 100 topics or pieces of content that we're being contracted for. Relatively limited budget, $4,000 or $5,000 per month. So what we do, most brands are looking at hundreds or thousands of keywords. We say, no, we're going to pick 100. We're going to pick 100 keywords we want to focus on. But how do we pick the right 100? Mm-hmm. Well, most brands want to rank for what we call short tail keywords, right? At SAP, like cloud computing. But what we say is, that's very difficult to do. But what we can rank for is the best brands in cloud computing. Now, that's a long tail keyword that probably relates to a purchase intent as well. Mm-hmm. So we look at long tail, we look at purchase intent. How do I pick a content marketing agency as an article I just published? Because people that search for that are looking for a content marketing agency. So we wrote an article about that. The other thing we love to look at is competitive gap. Where are the topics that your competitors are seeing some success on, but you're not? Well, those are topics that we certainly want to steal share away from them. And then my final tip, and this gets a little bit into the details.
I like that.
Yeah, so we pick about 200 keywords and then we bring it down to about 100. Mm-hmm. The way that we do the final narrowing down of the list is we look at cost per click of the keywords. Now, many people are familiar with that concept, but we're looking at it because it implies a higher cost per click in our mind. It implies conversion. People are spending money on advertising against a keyword because it's bringing them money. It's a little bit of a leap of faith. We're assuming marketers are good at their jobs, but I think it's a fair assumption to say people spend more for keywords that have high conversion and less for keywords that have low conversion. So we use that as a final data point to pick a narrow focused list of keywords that we think are important to create content against. Yeah, I mean, I always say, I'm not getting paid, but we use SEMrush, and in the States, most people say SEMrush, but I think in Europe it's SEMrush. Yeah. But no, I've been using them for years, but Moz and Ahrefs, and there may be some other tools as well, but those are the three main ones that I know people use. But yeah, we do two things with it. One, we use it to do the keyword research and create the list. But then number two, we commit to all of our clients to measuring their visibility over time against competition. So if you know SEMrush, it's called a visibility tracking report. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to take a common set of keywords. So it's really comparing apples to apples between SAP and Oracle. And so we can say, how does SAP rank on average visibility wise on cloud computing topics relative to Oracle, eliminating all the noise of brand search and brand keywords.
That's very interesting. So basically, which, if you have to pick 3 categories or features, more precisely, of SEMrush, that SEMrush that you would use, would that be audit of the URL to see how the website perform? That would be keywords comparison and analysis. Yep. And the third one you just add, right?
Visibility tracking report.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we had to focus on something on SEMrush, that would be those. Okay.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, we're doing it. I mean, I started doing it 10 years ago, and I was terrible at writing and terrible at coming up with ideas. Gosh, more than 10 years ago. It's, I guess now 13 years I've been writing. But yeah, it's something that I think there is an art and a science. One of the biggest mistakes I think companies make is they think they know better what you should do. And I always love to say, we live in a world that's easier because we can look to the research, we can look to keywords to tell us what to do. Mm-hmm. And so, I can do a competitive gap analysis using SEMrush, and it'll tell me what to write about. One of my favorite examples is, so I don't compete with HubSpot or Content Marketing Institute, but I do compete with them on content. And so I use them.
With who?
HubSpot.
No, you do compete with who?
HubSpot and Content Marketing Institute.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Yeah, those are 2 leaders in the content marketing space from a content perspective. Mm-hmm. I don't compete with them. HubSpot is a CRM company, marketing automation. Content Marketing Institute is an event company. However, they do great content. So I do content gap analysis against them. And one of the things that SEMrush told me to write about was director of marketing job responsibility. So I wrote an article about what is the typical job responsibility of a director of marketing. One of the articles I wrote, it told me to write was, what's the best way to promote YouTube videos? So I wrote an article about how to promote your YouTube videos. What's really interesting, when I wrote that article, that same week, and this is like serendipity if you believe in this, in that same week, I had 2 clients ask me, hey, we have all these great videos on our YouTube channel, but we don't know how to promote them. And I'm like, I just wrote an article about that because SEMrush told me to. So, I just find that you can use the tool, you can use customers asking questions as the great guides for what to create. And that's really the trick that we employ is insights from customers, insights from the tools, not what is inside my head, what I think is important. Use the buyer research to tell us.
How do you get insights to consumers? Do you go through the team of the company, or do you do research directly, really towards the final customer?
Yeah, it's not formal. I mean, again, we have 35 clients, give or take, and I'm speaking to most of them every week, or at least a third of them, just about every week. And so the questions that come up are the ones that we write down, so how do I optimize my website for conversion? That's an article I need to write because 3 people asked me that this week. What are the web design trends for B2B SaaS companies in 2022? That's a good article I should write. How do I develop a content marketing strategy when, our CEO just wants us to talk about product? I mean, that's a question that came up from a client yesterday. So, the things to write are relatively easy when you're having conversations with customers. Yeah, I think that they are the same. And what I mean by that is, first of all, I was a former salesperson, and I got into marketing because I was frustrated with the content marketing was giving me. Again, product content doesn't sell. Product content, it confirms a decision late in the buying process. Salespeople can't run around with product brochures and get leads or close leads from product brochures or product pages. It just doesn't happen. If you've spent any time in the sales process, you know that it starts with the challenger sale is a book and a concept of understanding the main challenges that are facing, the keeping the, main contacts up at night, and using that and using insights and expertise on those things to be able to get in the door. That's the best way to support the sales team. When I was at SAP, we started a newsletter from the content we were developing. Again, very high level. What is big data? What is cloud computing? Why is it important stuff? The first 50 people to sign up for the newsletter were our sales team. And they were using it to share it on LinkedIn to generate their own leads. And and they were giving us insights like, hey, I love this piece, but could you also do a trends piece? And, hey, I have a customer who's a CIO who's really interesting, and it might be good to kind of do a profile of her. So can you do an interview of her and write about it? And then I'll share it with all my contacts. The sales team is just a proxy for customers. So if you can't get customer content ideas directly, just go ask your sales team, what questions are your prospects asking you? And then write content based on that. Again, I always love to say the world we live in is a knowable place. And so we don't need to guess what we should be doing. We can find the good ideas from the folks all around us. So, for the longest time, I was arguing that employee activation or personal branding was the biggest trend in marketing. And what I found was, I think I was a little ahead of my time, maybe. Because it's very difficult. So, and the reason I did was, again, back to my SAP story, and in the book, The Content Formula, I talk about we were successful without a budget because we had about 15 thought leaders in the company. Some of them were salespeople, some of them were product people, some of them were marketing people who wanted to share what they knew in a non-promotional way. And so we went to them and we said, hey, if you're willing to write and share what you know, we'd like to provide a little bit of strategic direction for that. And together, we think we can help you build your personal brand that can help drive expertise and visibility for SAP, generate leads for the sales team, and success for all of us. And so that approach is why and how it worked for us at SAP. It was not because I had an SAP-like budget or what your audience might think we had. We had a budget to build the blog platform. We had a little bit of budget to promote the best content and to get leads. There was no content budget. We relied on thought leaderships and personal branding. What was really interesting then was the successful authors, the best content, became the badge of honor, the medal we were able to use, the incentive for other people to start joining. And when I left SAP, there were almost 1,000 employees who were writing for the SAP blog and brand across different platforms. And so I find that should be a really important initiative for many companies. The problem is I'm still working with companies on building the business case for content and effective content marketing. And so I always say employee activation and personal branding strategies are kind of like the last thing. And it's the only way, I think, to scale content marketing successfully without having to scale your budget. You're asking the best questions. They're the most logical questions. It's really interesting. When I was at SAP, I always said, we can't force and we should never mandate content creation for anyone. And so what we did was we started with the people that wanted to volunteer, that raised their hands and said, and it was 2 questions. Do you want to write or do you want to share? Because, there's a vastly different investment of time and resources and energy to write or share. But the people that want to do either one of them understand the value of doing it. And so we start with, do you want to write or share content? Okay, cool. Now, once you have that, then you have to separate the people out, who wants to write and who wants to share. And what we found, I have 3 employees, 2 of them wanted to write. And so they're writing on my blog. And they're doing a great job. And I support them and I require them to set a schedule. I always say, I don't care if you write 1 a week or 1 a month, but set a schedule and stick to that commitment. And they do, and they're doing a great job. The other one, she did not want to write. And I said, that was fine. But she's a photographer. So what I found was she really liked getting involved with helping create the images on our blog posts. So if you go, since October last year, we have a whole new sort of visual design, and she's the one that developed that, and she's managing that, and she's having a lot of fun doing it. So, we're tapping into the unique skill sets and interests of each of my only three employees, to create and to share content that's helping us to grow our awareness.
That's very interesting. I used to think that there was mostly 3 ways, and I don't get that from myself. I get that from Andy Crestodina, to be precise. 3 ways, mostly to promote the content. So I'm leading to that. SEO, social media, and newsletter. Okay, email marketing. That would be a great 4th one. because it's actually like some sort of mix between influencer marketing and personal branding within the company. So question, very straightly related question, how would you select those? Because those one volunteer, but you might have some others that don't volunteers, but have a major audience. Sometimes precisely they don't want to mix this up. So how do you convince them to go on? I have one example in mind for that. So
yeah, no, the best way to do it is really just through, like I mentioned, the highlighting the success of those that are doing it. And so again, I do not support executive mandates for people to share or write content. It just doesn't work, and you're fighting against too much pressure. I understand it. I was the same. I didn't want to write the first article I wrote. I was so nervous about writing and publishing. There's a lot of fear and a lot of individual, very deep personal fear. And so people have to go through that journey on their own. But as a brand, we can help them by highlighting, look at this person who wrote this amazing article and all the accolades and all the page views, and they're getting invited to speak at events. And if you want that for yourself, then here's the path that you can follow. So I think the only way to convince others to do it is just by shining a light on the success of those that are doing, and it creates kind of an incentive, I think. Yeah, no, I don't think you're crazy at all for asking the question. I think a lot of people ask that question. We focus on get more traffic as the call to action, because that's what founders reach out to us and say. They say, we have a website, our product was just market tested and validated. Nobody knows who we are and no one's coming to our website. We need more traffic and I don't have time to write. I know I need content. I don't have time to write. I don't know what content we should publish. And so we sell what we sell and we market it the way we market it, because that's what people come to us and ask us for. And we do. I mean, in the second and third year, many of our clients, we're helping them with strategies around podcasts and visual content and demand gen assets and all of the things that I think you mentioned. The thing that we start with, though, is some B2B SaaS founders go to an agency and they spend $100,000 on paid search or banner ads or brand awareness PR, and they have no measurement whatsoever. So we start with traffic because it's measurable. And so, I always say, hey, if you can at least start with something measurable like traffic, that's going to drive subscribers, that's going to get to leads or demos. We can measure that then through the funnel. So let's start with things you can measure. And then, start to see what works and test different things. And like I said, by the second year, we're doing all of the things that you mentioned. But we've done it in a way, in a model that's measurable, whether it's traffic, subscribers, leads, or in some cases, we even track the retention, upsells, and cross-sells for existing clients. So yeah, I think the main point is whatever you're doing, start with something measurable. Yeah, my favorite one, and it's in the book, The Content Formula. It's something people forget. And the way I explain it in the content formula is, if you do ROI calculations, if you understand the math, it's revenue minus investment divided by investment. And I always ask when I do keynotes, what's interesting about that calculation? I was an English literature major, not a math person, but there are words in the calculation. And what's interesting is 2 words show up twice, or 1 word shows up twice: investment. And so what's really interesting is, if you can cut your costs and get the same result, you can double your return on investment if you cut your cost by 50%, because of the way the calculation works. If you can get the same revenue for less cost divided by less cost, you can get exponentially higher value. So my advice, many of our clients come to us and they're spending on average 10 times per month what we charge per month. So we charge around $4,000 or $5,000 US. Most of our clients are spending $40,000 to $50,000 per month US on advertising. And a lot of it isn't working to get any revenue whatsoever. So my first thought is, you can save a lot of money just by spending money, spending less. So let's start by spending less. Okay, great. So you're saving money, but how do we get to the revenue number that's so important? And so we always talk about reach, engage, convert, and then ultimately retain. And so you have to build a funnel, a digital funnel that we can measure. And so that's why traffic is the first step. Are we getting and attracting people to our website? So we measure SEMrush visibility, search rankings, which drive traffic. and directly traffic from our content. So it's completely attributable to the traffic that they're generating. Then we look at, are the right, sort of calls to action in place? Well, not everybody wants to sign up for a demo because they read an article. And so we need softer touch points. We need things like newsletter subscriptions, or even free videos. Come check out our YouTube video, or subscribe to our podcast. Those are light conversions that they're sort of like, it's like dating. It's like you're on a first date. That's an appropriate ask for, I think, someone in the early stages of a relationship. Then we need to have, deeper sort of, ways to catch them. So we need, landing pages and ebooks and things that are webinar recordings that I think are something someone would give you their email address for. Now it's really up to the company. Our clients, have to have a sales process that allows them to convert those MQLs, or marketing qualified leads, to something that, they can measure for sales. But that's the process: reach, engage. People often miss the engage part, and then convert. And conversion is just a scientific, testing and optimization sort of process. Yeah, I think it's related to the personal branding question that you asked earlier. And I mean, it's how we met. We met at an event that I was speaking at. And it's funny, when I ask clients that usually fill out a form on my website how they found out about us, many of the times it's, I saw you speak 6 years ago. I read an article of yours on LinkedIn. I subscribed to your newsletter. I unsubscribed to your newsletter. I resubscribed to your newsletter. And then my CEO asked us for a content strategy, so I reached out to you. So it's like 9 things. And so I think it's a totally relevant and valid objective, especially to get executives. And with SaaS founders, we talk to them all the time about building their personal profile, largely through us ghostwriting for them on their website. And then, we work with a PR agency here in the US that does speaker pitches. So they will pitch out the CEO. In some cases, we've even written their keynotes and their PowerPoint presentations, because it does work. And I think as long as it's the right audience and, they deliver a message that's thought leadership and educational, not, why I built my company and why it's so amazing. So yeah, no, I think it's a really relevant, especially in the B2B SaaS world, for startups and founders. Yeah, I think they're different. Like, we talk about the format of our blog posts. So I think types have formats. What's the format of an ebook? So I think both are relevant for discussion. We wrote an article on how and why we format our blog posts the way we do. So, it's kind of my favorite thing to be able to say. Like, I wrote an article about that, and we've written about content types as well. So yeah, I mean, I think, again, if you look at, I think that when we think about the marketing funnel, which I always say people like to criticize the marketing funnel. The marketing funnel exists for a very good reason, to show that there are more people in the early stages than in the later stages. And so what we like to do in our content strategies is say the keywords and the questions that people are asked are relatively easy to define early, middle, and late stage, but so are the formats and types of content. Social posts, podcasts, short videos, blog posts, even short blog posts, are very relevant in the early stages. Deeply educational videos, webinars, long form blog posts, very, very helpful in the middle stages. I call them customer profiles. They're, a profile of a typical customer that doesn't say why they chose your company. Those kinds of validations and trends. One of my favorite posts I update every year is the top marketing conferences you should attend every year. I do that because I want to get invited by those conferences to come speak at their events. But it's a great late stage piece of content for me from a speaking perspective. So I think both the questions you should answer and the types of content you should use to answer them, are relatively predictable across the funnel. There's a couple, and one of the things that I think most people don't understand is only 2% of the traffic that comes to corporate websites in the B2B world comes from social. About only 5% comes from email, and 75% comes from organic search. And this is an Andy Crestodina tip that I have to share. republishing or refreshing and republishing old articles that ranked is a great way to promote content. People don't think of that as hitting the publish button is the best way to promote content. And because organic search is such a driver, is the largest driver of traffic to B2B corporate websites. So we should publish and republish our best stuff. So that I think is really important. We also, we deploy for our clients something called Zemanta, which is a contextual advertising platform. Some people might be familiar with Outbrain or Taboola. Zemanta is an artificial intelligence DSP or digital ad service that sits on top of those, that tries to find the right websites to suggest a piece of content to a specific audience. And so it uses topic modeling and intent data to understand that. And that's becoming harder to do. But you might be on a French website and see an article from Marketing Insider Group because Zemanta is promoting that to you because it knows that you've consumed content marketing content in the past. And so we do some of that for our audiences. We found that it's more effective than banner ads and paid search and paid social for sure. Yeah. So, those are some of the approaches that we recommend. We still do social media. Every article I publish gets shared out at least 4 times on Twitter, once on LinkedIn, once on Facebook. We don't get more than 2% of our traffic from social. And I think we're doing a pretty good job at social. So, what I suggest people do is automate your social as much as you can. Minimize the spend, again, that cost part of the return on investment equation. Minimize it, but don't abandon it completely.
Or become a LinkedIn ambassador.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that can work too. Yeah, I mean, I think in our workshop, I shared a template with all of you that were in attendance, and I mean, it's a relatively straightforward worksheet. Identifies personas. It identifies. You know what? Why don't I share it? I'll share it with you, and you can share it with your audiences. How's that sound?
I would love that.
But yeah, I mean, it's basically, it walks through the process that we walk through with our audiences, and that's document the personas. Who are they? What do they care about? An understanding of where you rank for search today versus your competition on the main keywords. That's my favorite exercise, because I don't think people realize, like at SAP, Oracle ranked number 3 and IBM ranked number 5 for cloud computing, and SAP ranked number 65. And that's in the book, The Content Formula. And so the sales team understood the importance of getting back to page 1 for that key important keyword. So that's a pre-post sort of analysis on keyword rankings versus competition. We talk about focus keywords then, so building out the larger list, creating a content calendar for all types, so written content, video content, demand gen content, event content, PR content, planning it out so that there's some frequency to it. And that's one of the big, in our workshops, it's one of the big things, I promote is the frequency. And then the measurement plan is certainly part of that. So how are you measuring reach, engagement, conversion, and retention? We have a suggested template for that. There's a few other things in there, like refresh plans, top articles that should be linked to, top converting pages that should be linked to, some of those kinds of things. But that really are the essential components of an effective content strategy.
That's great. If you can share that with us, it's like, wow, amazing. My last questions, actually 2, please, very quickly. One that I forgot to ask you right after the drive traffic and organic traffic as the main way to promote a content. Organic traffic through written content or through video, or equal? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so the problem with the question is that there's a huge cost difference between written content and video content. It's why we focus on written content. We can create 100 articles at an affordable cost for every company that is selling stuff. We could not do an affordable video marketing strategy for every company out there that's selling stuff. So what we do is, I call it OPP, other people's property, or it's a 90s rap song some of you may be familiar with, but actually it's an 80s rap song, I think. But the point is, we rely on other people's videos, infographics, visualizations, even animated GIFs, and we insert them into our written content to provide video content for our visually minded brains without having to spend money on it. So in our engagements with clients, we ask them, what are some competitors? And are there other sites that you don't want us referring or utilizing some of their visual content from. And so, for a lot of our clients, it's the industry, the industry like, McKinsey's and Accenture's for B2B technology. When they spend lots of money on research, they spend lots of money with agencies creating beautiful infographics and videos. When it ranks for the keyword we want to rank for, we embed it into our client's content. You'll see it on my content as well. We embed a lot of HubSpot content, videos and infographics, because they have the budget to spend on it, we don't.
And what about, related to that, the fact that in one case, you're struggling like hell to rank on keywords and you have to write, even if it's cheap. On the other hand, if you create few videos that are well optimized, you can also be paid by Google. So it's a way, maybe it's more costly, but it can be like a smart move also financially for a small business. No?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we would do a technical site audit of the website of the company to make sure, that's about $2,000 to $3,000 to make sure that they can rank, that they can reach the audiences that we want to reach. So that's number one. We would do keyword research, as we talked about, create a topic model. So usually 3 or 4 groups of keywords that we think are relevant, generally following the answer to the audience's main challenges. They usually fall into those buckets. And then we would create an editorial strategy against those keywords, and a written content plan, like I said, that includes the use of infographics and videos from others. I would also, and the final point is to make sure that there's at least one demand generation asset, an ebook, a webinar, something that we can use to capture demand so that we can point to some lead generation in the process. That's how I would spend it.
That's amazing. Thank you. Lead generation, demand generation content, could that be something like some sort of a school in like digital school where you would repurpose some written content into short videos presentation? That could be a demand generation content too? Like
anything that people are willing to sign up for, to give you their email address for.
Okay. Michael, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I will share all the info about Marketing Insider Group. You have your email inside. Everybody can reach out to you, follow you on LinkedIn, I assume. And I will share with you everything, all the content I will create based on this amazing interview. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a good conversation.